Today, my guest is Megan Edge. She's a master healer and the author of The Heart's Journey, Healing Hearts Oracle Cards and Guidebook box set. Megan offers mind, body, and soul healing through intuitive counseling, energetic and physical bodywork, plant medicines, essential oils, nutrition, and nature. Megan began her healing practice because she wanted to make a difference in people's journeys and create permanent and deep healing for her clients and her students. Megan makes a positive impact naturally by showing up as her deep, authentic self with the intention of creating safe and non judgmental spaces for the people in her life. She loves sharing her knowledge and expertise and showing how others can confidently be themselves and follow their dreams. So great to have you here, Megan. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much for inviting me on your show. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
Me too. So let's go back to the beginning. What was Megan like as a little girl?
So I was the little girl who, after the rainstorm, would run outside and save the worms that had crawled out of the lawns and were now on the sidewalks.
Oh, okay.
And I would scoop them all up and I'd put them back on the soggy grass without really understanding that the reason they'd left the soggy grass was because the grass was saturated and they couldn't breathe. But I was 5, so I thought I was doing a good thing. That was who I have always been, that person. I've always looked out for the underdog. I've always helped where I can help. Even as a little kid, that was my first thought. If someone was in trouble or someone was being bullied or someone just needed help, I would do whatever I could in my own little way, much to the chagrin of my parents on occasion. I remember one time I found a pigeon down at the dock. Uh, we live near the ocean, and it had, I guess, I don't know, flown into something because it was quite dazed. So I scooped it up and I brought it home and we put it in a little box in front of the fireplace. But what, of course, I didn't understand at the age of 6 or 7 is that the pigeon had a whole host of things living on it. And so,
Mm.
not to gross anybody out, but when it didn't make it through the night, the next morning, my poor mother opens the box and quickly threw it outside. Because if anyone sees
Mm.
a deceased creature, you know what that looks like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that was little Megan, who still is with me every day. And I save spiders and I, coax the ants outside. And I try not to kill anything if I can help it, unless it's biting me. I do draw the line at that. But
Here we go. I love
how
that.
have
The
I lost?
story, the information about the worms drowning, like I was doing that too. I was like, oh no, you're getting fried on the sidewalk. But they were trying to breathe. That's awesome. Yeah. And so you must have had a journey, some major life transitions that led you into becoming a healer. Do you recall anything that stands out?
There are some significant events in my life for sure, and the theme of them is when I couldn't help enough. And the first time that I was really aware that I couldn't help enough was with my mother, who had a whole host of very severe illnesses, which I now, through my own journey of learning, I understand why they happened. But at the time, I didn't. I mean, I had an intuitive understanding of why they were happening, but certainly mainstream medicine didn't have a clue why they were happening, and were only able to treat the presenting symptoms as opposed to wanting to understand where these symptoms came from, like what was being expressed through her body from these symptoms. And she ended up with a complete ileostomy. And for anyone who isn't aware of what that is, it's basically the entire large intestine and small intestine are removed from the body. And the person has, yeah, it's a radical surgery that they don't do as um, excitably as they did back then. This, we're talking 25 years ago now. And then the person is left with a bag attached to their small intestine, what's left of the sort of the nub of the small intestine, which sticks out through the skin underneath the rib cage, and everything goes through into that bag. Watching her go through this process. So she had Crohn's and colitis. And when you have Crohn's and colitis and your bowels aren't working properly, this is one of the radical approaches that some doctors choose to take, but it's irreversible. It's not like you regrow
Yeah,
a large intestine and a small intestine. It's a
right.
radical surgery. And you know, there was no one there to talk to her when she woke up from what she had gone into as exploratory surgery to discover that she now no longer had a digestive system besides her stomach. No one to talk to her about the trauma of that or the impact that that was going to have on her day-to-day life. There was no help around that for her. The surgeon just sort of did one of these and said, well, I did a great job. It's clean surgery. And that was it.
Ooh.
And she never recovered from that. And she had other issues as well, you know, psychological and emotional issues. And it was all just so big. And this was I was in my early 30s at this point. So I was already well on my journey to becoming a healer, but I wasn't yet doing this as my work. And I felt so helpless to be able to advocate for her, to defend her against the medical system, to find other ways that she could have been living her life in a healthy manner so that this Crohn's and colitis wouldn't have shown up in the first place. And also the work she could have done psychologically to heal the emotional and energetic sources of this illness that showed up for her. So that was huge. And then she did pass away. She died, not from that surgery, but from other complications. And I remember feeling devastated and also feeling like she had been failed. She'd failed herself primarily, but she'd also been fundamentally failed by the medical system. And I wanted to find something else that, even though I knew I couldn't have saved her at the time, and maybe I wouldn't have been able to, regardless of what I know now, I could have offered her something more holistic, something
Yeah.
based in our experiences of life and how those experiences then show up in our physical body. So that was really like a fundamental event in my life that put me on this path of wanting to be able to know for myself what I could do differently, but also to be able to offer it to other people so that people didn't have to go through the kind of trauma that she went through at the time.
Yeah, I think surgery is hopefully a last resort, and we
Mm.
know that a lot of physical symptoms present from emotional and energetic pain, right? So it
Yeah.
makes me think of a couple books, The Body Keeps the Score,
Mm.
and It Didn't Start With You by Mark Woolen. And I see people having symptoms and I can see where it's really coming from, and it's not a physical thing. We're always looking for this physical thing, but it's coming from some kind of stress or trauma that hasn't
Mhm.
been processed. And people don't know that. And they're always looking, because our medical system is all about just treating physical symptoms.
Mhm.
Um, if we don't heal the real problem, then we keep making money off treating symptoms, right?
Well, and yeah, and you're right on the money when you say that, because it's not a secret that the pharmaceutical companies are making billions and trillions of dollars every year off of prescriptions. So why on earth would they be looking for a cure? Right? That's not what their shareholders want. I don't want to be like dumping on mainstream medicine, because having had 17 surgeries myself from the age of 5 to the age of, I guess my last surgery was in my late 40s, and all for different things, but all a part of this physical body and its needs. But part of that journey was me understanding where those where those things came from, like what was underneath the need for the physical surgery. And and since I came to a place where I said I'm not doing that anymore, I haven't had another surgery. Right. So there's
Yeah.
there's so much that our brain is capable of, that our mind is capable of, and it's up to us to learn and teach ourselves to empower ourselves around our medical autonomy, because at this point in North America, especially Canada and the US, we don't have medical autonomy. Our choices have been taken from us, and most of us are brought up with this white coat syndrome, where as soon as somebody puts on a white coat and a stethoscope, we just lose all ability to stand up for ourselves and to ask, even just to ask simple critical questions, such as, what is this medication supposed to do? And what are the 13,000 side effects of this medication? And
Yeah.
what is the risk? The benefit to the risk, what is that? We're not encouraged to ask those questions. I do a lot of advocating for my clients in the medical system, within the medical system, and I come up against a lot of doctors who don't want me asking those questions because they're inconvenient questions, especially if they don't have the answer. I come up a lot of some wonderful doctors too, but yeah, it's more of the what I call medical stubbornness, which is an inability to be curious about what's actually happening for a patient and how to present preventative ways of treating and dealing with situations that their patients are in.
Yeah, and I noticed that, we're discouraged from asking those questions because we put doctors on such a pedestal, right? Their time is so much more valuable than ours. We go sit in the waiting room and we have to wait 15 to 30 minutes before they even see us, yet we're supposed to show up to our appointment early. So it's a very confusing dynamic. And then, they only have a few minutes with you. And so
Mm-hmm.
asking questions and advocating for yourself, it gets really irritating for them, especially if they don't have the answer, like you said, and most of them
Mm.
are not even allowed to talk about holistic healing, or they don't have the knowledge at all.
You're absolutely correct. And in fact, over the last 5 years, and when we were in the depth of the early 20s, friends of mine who are naturopaths, but also mainstream doctors here in Canada, in March of 2020, before any announcements were made about what was happening in the world, they were all issued letters from their colleges of physicians and surgeons, or colleges of homeopathy rather, that they were not allowed by mandate to speak to their patients about vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc, or advise them in any way about critical thinking around medicine that might be issued in the coming months. I have seen these letters.
Wow.
Unbelievable. And it happened in the US as well. Just floored me. I was absolutely floored. And when I saw those letters, I thought, wow, we're really in for a ride for the next few years as this unfolds. And I
Wow.
doubled down on my efforts to educate people about their own health and well-being and what's around them that they can use as medicine, like food and herbs and plants in the forest and on the beaches, or even just in their own garden. What supplements that were still available that they could use. You really try to open up people's awareness of their body as their temple, and that what they put into their body is what creates health or illness.
Absolutely. And we have over processed food and you know manufactured ingredients in our food, so when we can get a natural source of food that actually has nutritional value left in it because the soil is
Mm-hmm.
not depleted, that's a major issue. But also what we put into our minds, right? You and
Yes.
I know about the inner critic and how much that negative self-talk can make you sick, physically sick.
Absolutely, it can. And one of the place I start first with my clients is not about what they've come to me for, because what they think they've come to me for is actually not what the problem is,
Yeah,
or not even the problem. I don't love that word. It's not what the issue is. Where I start is with their story, because I want to hear the words that they're using to describe themselves, to describe their experiences, to describe the way that they interact with the people in their lives, because that will give me a really good snapshot of where they are in their own self-worth. Right. And that self-worth piece, that's where that inner critic, that doubting demon comes in. I actually work with this with my clients and with my students. We call them the doubting demon, the backpedaler, and the inner critic. And these three aspects of our personality generally run the show unless a person is aware of what these voices are and where they're coming from. And so we do this really fun exercise where I invite the client to give a name to each of these three aspects of their self-saboteur, right? So name your doubting demon, name your inner critic, name your backpedaler, whatever name comes to you. It could be the most ridiculous name, it could be the most mundane name. The idea with this exercise is to give personality to these voices so that you can identify them when they show up for you. Instead of these just being random thoughts in the background that are on a hamster wheel that you're not conscious of, This helps you become conscious of the difference between these three aspects, first of all, because the backpedaler has a different role to play than the doubting demon does. And each of them has a role to play. This is what's really important about this exercise, is to recognize that your doubting demon is showing up not because you're a bad person and not because you're not aware of yourself. Your doubting demon is showing up to ask the questions that you need to ask about a particular circumstance or your life's path or whatever it is. And so I teach people to work with these aspects of themselves. Okay, so Paul the doubting demon has showed up. Well, what am I doubting? Let's listen to the message that Paul has for me. Paul is saying, I doubt that you can do this. You didn't finish your degree. I don't think so. And then you, the person who you are, so in my case, so Megan says, well, Paul, is it really true that because I didn't finish that degree that I'm not able to do this thing that we're looking at doing? Like we start to question the thoughts that we're having. And as soon as we question those thoughts, we're working with them. And then they don't have an unconscious power over us anymore. So once we've identified these three, and what's really fun is to watch how quickly a client or a student names these characters because they know them really well, right? These are the ones that usually show up for us first. So they're super excited to name these guys or gals or whoever and start working with them. And then I say, okay, that's great. That's great that you've had these conversations and that you know the sounds and voices and the kinds of words that these characters use. Now I want you to connect with your wise self, your divine essence, and your inner wisdom. You can hear a pin drop. You can hear a pin drop. I've done this exercise in when I've been doing public speaking and doing like workshops for large crowds. And there's such a babble for the first part of the exercise, but suddenly it's like quiet. What do you mean, my wise self? What do you mean divine essence? What are you talking about? I don't know who those are. Most of us are not brought up with an appreciation for how wonderful we are, for how
Right.
wise we are, for how divine we are, for how important and special we are in the world. It's unfortunate, but that's the truth. And even if we were brought up in a family that really supported us as a child in our wonderfulness, we're going to get beaten down out in the real world unless we really have a super strong core. And even then, things are going to come up, show up, other people's stuff is going to show up, and we're really going to have to navigate that road. So most people don't know that those aspects of themselves exist, and they sure don't know how to name them. Right? So
Yeah.
so we take the first part of the exercise, which is kind of fun and silly, although it's deep and important, and then we drop in. And we have these amazing conversations about, well, who is your wise self? And what does she or he look like? And how does it feel when you acknowledge you have a divine self and then actually work with that divine self? Right. And it's the balance between the first three, the sabotaging aspects of ourself, and then the wise aspects of ourself, because they work together. They work together. And most of what we experience as our self-sabotager, those three aspects of ourselves, those are coming from childhood and potentially even other lifetimes, but they're certainly coming from childhood in this lifetime. And so that means that our inner child is running the show. And that's actually not fair to that inner child. So when we access our wise and divine self, we step into showing up in the world as an adult, right? As an empowered adult. And then we can say to the doubting demon and the backpedaler and the rest of them, we can say, it's okay. You don't have to take this on. This is not your responsibility to make these big decisions like, should I get married and should I change my job? And am I doing the right thing for myself? And all of those questions that come up for us as we're adults, how to pay the bills, that's not child's play.
Mm-mm.
So what I say at the end of the exercise is, okay, so open the door and send the first three out to the playground and let them go play. And then let's work with your adult self, your wise self. It's an incredibly transformative exercise for people. And they're literally not the same person they were when they entered into the exercise as they are when they leave the exercise.
I love that. And it's like, it's an actual physical kind of, you can do this kind of in your head, but if you're interacting with a coach or a healer and it's you're really naming and recognizing the voice. I think a lot of people will have resistance to this type of work because they believe they've been told that that's multiple personality disorder. Remember that term.
Oh, yes.
And so they're like, talk to myself, voices in
That's
my
right.
head. It's like, but you know that they're there. So don't try to deny it.
That's right.
It's okay. Everybody has them.
Everybody has, and they're not separate entities, right? They're
No.
just aspects. And when we talk about aspects, we're talking about the multidimensional person that we are. And what I've found with this exercise is that for the doubting demon and the backpedaler and the other one, I always forget his name. What is he or she? The inner critic. That's right. The inner critic. That's a big one. They usually are they are the sound of the voice of someone important in our growing up years, in our childhood years. So the sound of our mother or our father or a teacher or somebody, our grandmother. It's when people stop to actually acknowledge these voices. And yes, we do hear voices. Now, when the men in white coats come and ask you if you're hearing voices, you say no, not at all. But when you're working with an alternative healer or a holistic healer or coach, you can do this work. Once we hear that voice, we recognize that, oh my gosh, that was my overcritical grandmother. What we can do then is we can separate ourselves from her, right? Because her criticism of us, if it was an overcritical grandmother, is coming from her lack of self-worth, her lack of self-value that she's putting on us. And as children, we don't have the discernment to recognize necessarily what is ours and what belongs to someone else. But as an adult, we do. And so that's where we can do the deep inner work to say, right, just because grandma said that I looked ridiculous in the outfit I wore to Thanksgiving dinner and when I was 5, and I still remember that at 40, and I'm really concerned about what I wear now. Oh, that's not me. That's her. I can give it back to her, right? I can give it back to her. And there's exercises that I work with to help people do that, like physically and emotionally, give it back so that you know who you are, separate from all the influences in your life as you were growing up, right? And when people ask me, well, how do you start the healing journey? Like it feels so big, it's so overwhelming. Where do I begin? This is one of the best places to begin. Like, this is a great place to begin because it's a fun exercise, but it's also a deep exercise and it creates lasting change, which is what is the foundation of deep and permanent healing. Oh, and you've frozen. So this will be one of the glitches we edit out. I'll do some Reiki on it. There we go.
Oh,
Now you're
okay.
back. Yeah, you're back.
Okay. Dang it.
Did I freeze as well? Did we miss all of
Yeah.
what I just said? Oh, shoot.
Well, just
No, and you're frozen again.
you were. Oh no.
Okay. It's
Okay.
definitely choppy. Do you do Reiki? Do you do energy
No,
work?
I've
No?
never.
Oh, okay. Well, it's just, I mean, you don't have to do Reiki. It's just energy healing through your hands, but it works on technology as well.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just laying on of hands. So you just imagine in the center of your hand, you've got this beautiful hand chakra, and you just imagine a beautiful light, whatever color comes to you, coming out of the center of your hands, and you just push it towards whatever is glitchy, whether it's a
Okay.
person or a car or a computer, because people get glitchy too.
They do. They
Yeah,
do. Well, they've got their inner child running the show.
that's
And so
right.
many of us want to believe that's not true. Like, because you are out in the world and you're getting a job and you're paying bills. And so you've got this voice that's like, no, my inner child. And that's good because that's your higher divine self. There,
Hmm.
you heard it for the first time. It's a voice that's encouraging you and telling you that you are getting things done and that you are capable.
That's right.
And when our inner critic is crowding out that voice all the time, when
Mm.
it's unconscious and it's back there and we're just trying to ignore it and push it away and say that, oh, I forgot about that thing that happened in childhood, I'm just moving forward. No,
Hmm.
you're not. It's
No, you're
still
not.
there all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, I think most people's childhoods from sort of probably 5 or 6 when you really start to become aware of yourself as a separate entity from your parents and the adults around you to about 25. I would say 99.9% of the population has PTSD from growing up, just the act of growing up in our culture. I don't
Yeah.
think it's true in other cultures necessarily, but I do think it's true right now in the 21st century. That's what's happening to people. So you walk into your adult years full of unresolved PTSD from little things to big things, because there isn't a framework in our culture to really acknowledge these traumas and then work to heal them immediately or as soon after as possible. Instead, we wait until we're 50 or 60. We've gone through 1 or 2 divorces, we've gone through 2 or 3 different careers, and we suddenly realize maybe there's something wrong with me. And when I say
Right.
wrong with me, I want to be really careful with that, because I don't actually believe there's anything wrong with any of us. We just show up as who we are, and we work from there. But instead of thinking it's everybody else, right? We blame it on everybody else. It's my boss, it's my spouse, it's my parents. Actually, it's you. And as an adult, you have the tools if you look for them. I mean, you already have the wherewithal if you know this, but certainly you can ask for help. That's the first thing you do, and find those tools. They're going to help you un what's the word, like reveal who you are, the truth of who you are. And it's not about making anything that's happened to you in the past bad. It's about accepting all of the things that have happened to you, because that's why you are who you are today, and start from that loving place and move forward from there to reveal the you that you came here to be.
Yes, absolutely. So
Yeah.
that you can hear that higher self, inner voice, divine essence. We've learned that we are, I guess our religion and our culture has tried to separate God from us and say that God is something out here that needs to be revered and you are a sinner. But God is, we have life within us because that's God. That's the essence of
Mhm.
God. And,
Yes.
for me, it's God having a human experience through each of our bodies and perspectives. And one of the things I like to point out is like, what kind of experience are you giving God? Are you,
Mm-hmm.
if you're
Mm-hmm.
sitting at church and putting on a tight suit with restrictive clothing and you're making yourself be still, like the way that we grow up, our school systems, you have to
Right.
sit still at a desk and you're a child and you need to be running. I mean, you need to be
Yes.
outside and exploring and using your hands. And, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that's how children learn, but we're sat at a desk and we're made to sit still and be quiet, and if we get too loud or boisterous or joyful, then we're told to be quiet. And so that's part of the PTSD that is happening to everybody. It doesn't sound like it's this big, traumatic event like a car accident or being beaten by a parent, but you still are taught that your natural essence is unacceptable and that you are separate from God and that you are separate from nature and everything that you're made of, everything that you are. You learn to distrust your body,
Mm-hmm.
distrust your pleasure, distrust any expression of joy. It's, and so, of course, you
Yeah.
don't feel good about yourself and you're afraid to take risks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a journey and everybody's on that journey over
Yeah.
here in this part of the world. We're all
Yeah.
on it.
So true. So true. And what's beautiful is that because this has been happening over a number of generations, some of us have already come to the other side of that healing journey. And I don't mean to suggest that like you just stop healing or you stop journeying. You don't, because things continually come up. But we've built up a toolkit, a healer's toolkit of things that we know we can go to when life shows up in a way that we weren't expecting it to. And that also means that there are people in our communities who can mentor those of us who are only just starting or are halfway there. Right. So there's this constant one by one waking up of people to the reality and the truth of how important it is that we recognize our connection with nature and how we are not separate from it. In fact, that everything that we put into our bodies, everything we surround ourselves with, comes into our bodies. We are not a closed system. And when we have love and respect for ourselves and all the people around us, we can allow that health to be our divine right, right? Instead of normalizing the health crisis that we're in, instead of normalizing obesity, normalizing inflammation, normalizing things like Alzheimer's and dementia and Parkinson's, and saying, no, this is just a normal part of aging. BS. No, it's not. Absolutely, it's not. But look at why we're in this health crisis, right? What are we being fed? Like you say, these processed foods. Our autonomy to feed ourselves has been removed. Our autonomy to make medical choices for ourselves has been removed. And the options for us medically are very narrow. If we are in the mainstream medical system, which a lot of people are, and they don't know how to get out of it because they don't know that there's other options. And also it's scary. Like, I get that. It's scary. If you're on 6 or 7 different medications and it's been pounded into you that the moment you stop any of these, you're going to die, that's a really hard place to be. And I use that word hard purposefully in this instance because once something becomes hard, energetically, it becomes very challenging. Now I'm using the new word, right? I'm doing the imprint of the new word. It becomes really challenging to move ourselves out of the energy of it's too hard, right? It stops us. So this circles all the way back to the power of the words that we use to describe ourselves and our circumstances and situations. There are high vibration words and there are low vibration words. Challenge is something we step up to. Hard stops us in our tracks.
Mhm.
That's a
Yeah,
bit of a rabbit hole, but it's an important one.
it is. The power of our language is, it's spelling, spell casting, basically. So
Mhm.
we're putting ourselves under a spell with every word that we use. And so that's why it's really important to address that inner critic
Mhm.
and get in touch with that divine self, and then start, even in manifestation, when we're manifesting money or a partner or whatever, we have to be very careful about not using negative words and not expressing what I don't want, because
Mhm.
like a child, I mean, our subconscious mind, a child is like our subconscious mind. It's up to age
Mhm.
7, you're basically in a state of hypnosis. You're taking everything in and it's very literal. You can't take a joke. Even if someone's joking with you and you're given the message that you're supposed to laugh and think it's funny, you still literally believe that whatever they've said is something true about
Mhm.
you, and that
Mhm.
you're, so be careful when you're joking around with young children. They don't get it.
Yeah, that's right.
But the subconscious mind is like that. So if you're saying what you don't want, it's not listening to don't, it's just listening to the major word, and it's going to reflect back to you what that word is. You're going to keep
Mhm.
seeing it come up in your field. And so many of us don't know how to say what we do want.
Yeah.
We've been so disconnected from having the right to actually want anything.
Mhm. Yeah, it comes down to a deserving and permission granting, right? I don't deserve to have beautiful things. So even if I say what I don't want is another broken car, what you're really saying is I want another broken car because I believe that's all that I deserve, right? That's the deserving piece. And then the permission piece is giving yourself permission, whether you believe it or not, to have something lovely, giving yourself permission to believe that you deserve it, right? And you fake it till you make it. But eventually, when you do it enough times, something shifts in your energy field, something shifts in your body, and you can feel it. You feel it right in your solar plexus, right in your gut. The truth of, wait a minute, where's that whole deserving thing coming from anyways? Whose child, like what childhood person told me I didn't deserve that? And what is how is that a reflection of them and what they believe? And then again, we come back to you give that belief back to them because it's not yours. You don't need to
Yeah.
hold on to it. When we talk about manifesting, this is something I teach on as well. I have a 8-week manifesting course, and it's the 8 power points or 8 power steps to becoming a master manifester. And each step we unravel, undo, and heal a certain belief that we've been taught about who we are, why we're here, and what we are without using, I don't want to use those low vibration words, what we can invite into our lives. Right. But again, it's that deep work. So when somebody comes to me and says, well, I've tried manifesting and I've, said all the right things and I read The Secret and I did all that, like, but have you done your work? Because you
Right.
don't just get to sit in the rocking chair and twiddle your thumbs and go, okay, I manifested, bring it in. You actually have to do the work. You have the action and alchemy, like you have to take the action to create the alchemy. The alchemy creates the thing that you've put out into the world, the vibration of the thought.
Yeah.
You've got to peel back those layers and get to the foundational belief. And if it's a limiting belief, then you need to do the clearing of that belief, or else it's just going to feel like more bad luck, which is of course an illusion, but that's what it's going to feel like.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And that brings me to, you mentioned Reiki, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not familiar with it. So if you could share with me, what is
Yeah,
it all about?
absolutely, absolutely. So Reiki is a system of energy healing that was developed by, and I'm sorry, I don't have his name on the tip of my tongue, but he was, I think he was Chinese. Oh my gosh, it's been a while since I've gone into the history of it. But essentially what he saw was that herbs and pharmaceuticals and plant medicines and all of those things will only go so far if the energy system of the body hasn't been worked on, hasn't had healing, hasn't had clearing. So he devised a series of hand positions that connected with the energy field of a person's body. And he created he created Reiki. Now in the world today, and this was 200 years ago, 150 years ago, that he started the system. And at the time that he started it, it was very stringent, like a lot of years of training to do this properly. Only very few people were able to do it, were allowed to do it. But he did want this to be available to people. So the trainings were very expensive to do, but the practitioners, at least for some of their training, while they were practitioners, had to do this work for free to bring it to people who couldn't necessarily afford it. So fast forward to today, and there are, couldn't even count how many different versions of Reiki there are, or different types of Reiki that there are. I went through my Reiki training. I became a Master Reiki, Master Reiki. But then I found for myself that there were some limitations to the whole process, and also part of my personality is that when somebody tells me there's no other way to do something, I will immediately find 3 other ways to do it. That's just who I am. So,
Yeah.
so my teacher said to me, no, it has to be like this, and the hands have to be here, and it has to be. So I learned it that way. And then I started adapting, because what I discovered is, as I was working on my clients, okay, so in Reiki, I'm supposed to have my hands, let's say, up here on top of their third eye, and that helps to clear out negative thoughts or limiting beliefs. Okay, but my intuition is telling me that what they really need me to do is move my hands behind their neck and hold that space and do some work with that. So over a period of time, I created a new healing modality called intuitive energy massage, which incorporates Reiki, which is essentially a hands-on, hands-off kind of energy healing. European tradition has what I call white light healing, but it's basically hands-on. Reiki is hands-off. So if you're doing traditional Reiki, you don't touch the body. You're only working with the energy field that surrounds us. If you're doing healing hands, you're actually touching the person's body. In intuitive energy massage, it's a combination. And there's other energy healing modalities that come into it. And then there is a counseling piece. So we talk prior to the session, we talk after the session, because what happens for the practitioner when they're working on the body is that and I teach them how to access their own intuition to hear and feel what their client's body is holding on to that the client doesn't have words for. And that could be traumatic events from childhood. It could be things that are happening in their lives emotionally that they haven't put words to yet, even though they're an adult, they have language now. It could be things from other lifetimes. It could be all kinds of different things that show up. And so then afterwards, we talk, and the practitioner shares what came to them and the client shares what they experienced while they were receiving it. So I know your question was, what is Reiki? But I can't talk about Reiki without bringing in all of these different ways in which essentially what we're doing is we're recognizing and acknowledging that the body has an energy field. If you need the evidence, science has proved it. We can see our energy fields. We have that technology. And then we recognize that our energy field holds our experiences. And any traumatic experience gets held first in the energy field. And if we can do the work on the energy field before it enters the physical body, it never needs to enter the physical body. Right? So it's like the first clearing happens at the energetic level. Then if we didn't get there in time, then it will show up usually within 5 to 7 years or more from the traumatic event to the point where it shows up in the physical body as an illness or an injury. And the illness and the injury is the body's way of saying, hey, we need to do the work. Like, I'm trying to get your attention here, and it's going to be painful because you're not paying attention.
You're ignoring me.
You're
I'm
ignoring
telling
me.
you.
Right. And so
Yeah.
then we can bring in all the tools, right? So we bring in the energy healing, we bring in the physical healing, which is around what we're eating and how we're being in the world, right? And then we bring in the tools that help us to connect to our higher self, our intuition, our divine wisdom. Those are things like oracle cards. Those are things like crystals, rune stones. They're tools that help us focus in on what it is that we're wanting advice on, how we want guidance, how that shows up. And when we do that, we're giving permission, like we were talking about earlier, we're giving permission for our bodies to participate in the healing journey, all the different bodies that we have. So the physical, spiritual, energetic, and well, there's lots. There's more. Yeah, there's a whole bunch.
Yeah. And these things, oracle cards, crystals, they also make it fun, and play is a major part of the healing journey. If you can return to like that childhood imaginative, and crystals are they're beautiful. They feel good. They're
Yeah.
it's funny how um I didn't believe in that stuff at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
because I was raised Jehovah's Witness, and it was very much
Oh, yes.
separation,
Mm-hmm.
basically
Mm.
scarcity, fear, separation,
Yes. Yeah.
and a lot of unworthiness. So
Yeah.
the idea, the thing that was done was to take all of that magic stuff out
Mm-hmm.
of my brain, my body, my emotional body, my energy, and to really, that's kind of how you make people into slaves. It's you disconnect them from nature, magic, intuition, and then they don't trust their sexuality, their
Mm-hmm.
body.
Yeah.
When they don't trust those things and they don't believe in those things, they're very easy to control because
Mm-hmm.
they have lost their sense of direction and divinity. And
Yeah.
um, so
Absolutely.
bringing these tools in is actually, so it's not just fun, but it really does actually work. It's amazing when I
It is
pull
amazing.
my
Yeah.
cards and just how right on they are with what I'm doing. And, because I'll have something going on and I just can't quite get the clarity that I'm looking for. So something will pull me toward, it's what's really awesome is when life just starts pulling you towards things. It puts
Yes.
things in your field, and
Yeah.
that's, you were talking about the taking action in manifestation. When you
Mm-hmm.
start listening and you start recognizing synchronicities, and oh, this was put in my path, oh my, where did that come from? Yeah, that looks fun, that feels good. Yeah, it's probably something you want to be doing. So like
That's
I'll
right.
I'll be in that state and I'll look up and there's those cards, and I'm like, oh, it's time to pull some cards. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And that allows you to get into that space of reciprocity. No, that's the right word. Receiving. It gets you into the space of receiving from your higher self or from whomever you believe and feel is around you. And I love what you said about play, that these tools are about playing. And it's true. They give us a tactile sensation. They give us a visual sensation. And in fact, with the deck of oracle cards that I've published with Hay House and Balboa, these are all images of hearts in nature. Right. So this one is called Unique Heart. I mean, look at that. That's a rock that I
Yeah.
found on the beach. It's a gorgeous heart, right? So I
Yeah.
took the photograph of the heart and then I listened for what the message was of the heart, this unique heart. And it says, each heart is unique. Each being experiences love differently. Be yourself and love yourself, and all else will follow. Super simple message, right?
Yeah.
And this beautiful, I still have this heart rock. I actually took this one off the beach with me. But what it does is it gives you a moment to pause and think, wow, okay, am I really just letting love show up uniquely? Am I allowing myself to be an expression of my own uniqueness through the way in which I love other people and I love myself? And if I'm not, why not? Right? And so the message becomes like a form of meditation because it gives you something to think about and contemplate. And then ask the really important question of yourself, how can I bring more of this into my life? And then listen for the answer, right? And it's all that whole thing about trusting our intuition and recognizing how smart we are, how wise we are, and doing that work with our doubting demons or our inner critic and saying, you know what, I hear you, I hear what you're saying. However, I think it's time I start questioning what you're saying because it's not really landing for me anymore. But thanks for showing up. Thanks for
Yeah.
bringing that to my attention. And you've done your job, and that's great. That's your job, is to make me aware of the things that I am believing that are limiting me in what's possible for me. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can feel the truth of that message from your card when you know, anything that makes you slow down and pause and
Exactly.
bring more of your own authenticity back to the surface, like all the things that I don't know if you had I had a lot of siblings. I was the youngest of six kids,
Oh, wow.
and our parents both worked. And so there was a lot of time of kids raising kids, and kids are not good parents. So
You are so right about that.
they will make fun of every little thing, especially like me as the youngest, like anything that my parents really praised, my siblings would be like, "Eh, that's disgusting, get rid of that," And so
Mhm.
my little inner critic just was like rejecting every part of me that was kind of light and
Mhm.
dreamy and magical and beautiful, and
Yeah.
because older
Yeah.
siblings just shaming that part of you. And so we all of us at some point, somebody says something like that to us and we start becoming inauthentic. We start
Yeah.
like, I became very like rigid and
Mhm.
controlling.
Mhm.
And I was a financial controller and I didn't know that I was a
Mm.
controlling person.
Right.
I
Right.
had an I had an employee when we were just talking about I was talking about my daughter and I was like, she's so controlling. I don't know how she got that way. And my employee just stopped and laughed and was like, yeah, I have no idea.
It's a
And I
mystery.
was like, what? What? And that was the first time that I had become aware that, and later down through the healing journey, I
Mhm.
understood that I had become a parentified child because I
Mm.
was trying to keep the siblings from fighting and keep the chaos under control. And so I would learn to like manage everybody's energy and prevent the fights before they happened. And I would fawn and then I would kind of manipulate. And
Mhm.
so while I was a nice manager, a kind manager, supportive and encouraging, that vibration of you're manipulating and controlling everything was there.
Yeah. That's right. And so you had to clear that out, or you
Yeah.
chose to clear that out once you became aware of the limitations of that way of showing up in the world, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That is
seeing
not,
where it came from.
yes, seeing
Yeah.
where it came from. And then, that's not a good way to manifest things because God, divine spirit, universe, whatever you call it, wants to delight you and surprise you and brings you things you could never imagine. And if you're constantly trying to control and know how and where it's going to show up and manage the details of it, you're not going to get to have that experience and you're
And
going to
it's
miss out on
exhausting.
a lot. It's
It's
exhausting.
exhausting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then illness is going to set in. Illness is going to show up. So that's really, it's so fascinating that you shared that. And thank you for sharing that. It reminds me of what my biggest challenge has been as a healer, right? It's not been about, am I healed enough yet to help other people? It hasn't been about, am I good enough to be a healer or any of that? But what it has been, the biggest challenge for me has been recognizing and realizing that the earth doesn't need me to heal it, right? And I don't need to heal the earth. And when I say the earth, I mean the world, like everything on it, all the people on it. One of the things that creates the most burnout for healers is the belief we have that we have to heal everybody around us, whether they want it or not, whether they ask
Yeah.
for it or not. We take on all kinds of causes. We suggest things to people if we know that, we've got something that we think could help them, and it's equally exhausting, and it leads to burnout. And it's this sort of almost like apocalyptic thinking that the world isn't going to survive unless I get out there and I do everything I can to heal everything and everybody. And you can feel, even as I say that, just how intense that is,
Yeah.
right? So I had to learn over a number of decades of doing this work where it was important for me to separate myself out from the work that I was doing, right? When I worked on a crisis line, I worked on a sexual assault crisis line when I was in university as part of my personal training. Because I wanted to become a counselor or a therapist for survivors of sexual abuse and sexual assault. And I spent a year working on this crisis line. And I, what I see now in retrospect is that I would take on the calls that I was receiving, and I would hold on to them for weeks. I couldn't sleep at night because I would be replaying the stories that I was being told as I was helping these people through the crisis that they were in. And I didn't know how to separate myself from their experiences. And in part because I'd had my own experiences with sexual assault that were not yet resolved or healed. And so anytime I heard somebody else's, I got triggered into my stuff, right?
Hmm.
So when I work with my students, the first 6 months or first 4 or 5 months of the training that we do is our own work first, right? And it's not that you have to be a perfectly healed person, because no one is ever going to be a healer. But what you have to be able to do to be a good and effective healer and to really be there for your client is to recognize what's yours and what's theirs. And if they say something, if they share something that you get a trigger around, you need to go and do your work on that. You can still
Yeah.
be helping them, but the recognition of, oh, there's a something there. Oh, I had that same experience with my overbearing mother. Right. And I'm feeling it now, as opposed to holding it for them. Right. If you can hold it for them, and at the end of the session, they leave and they go do their work, and you go back to your day and you're not ruminating about what they've told you, then you're clear.
Yeah.
But if you're ruminating about what they told you, that means you're still trying to help them.
Mm.
And underneath that, you're trying to help yourself. You're trying to use their story to help you heal. And that's not a healthy relationship between healer and client, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Not at all.
So for
And
me,
there,
that was my biggest challenge, was to recognize and realize I'm not here to heal the world can heal itself. And when
yes.
people show up in my energy field, it's because they and I, or me and them, whatever the grammar is, we've attracted each other because we can do the work together, because we're a fit. But I don't have to save everybody.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And part of that is like, one part of it is recognizing, oh, I have this amazing skill and I want to share it with the world. And another part of it is like, I need to pull energy off of people because I'm getting my worthiness from being this really important person. And if I'm not this important person, then what am I doing here? I'm not worthy of being here. Right. So
Yes.
that's,
That's
it's
right.
really important if you're working with a coach or a healer and you start noticing that they're trying to rescue you and they're
Mm.
trying to fix it all for you, that's not a beneficial dynamic for either
No,
of you. And
no,
so,
it's not. And so even though I call myself a healer and I've been given the title Master Healer, I'm not the one doing the healing when somebody comes to work with me, right? And I'm sure you're aware of this too. My role, as I see it, is to empower my client to recognize their healing capacity. And I can do a lot of work around that for them, but at the end of the day, no one can heal them but themselves. Right. So I can give them the tools and I can show them techniques, and we can do exercises like the doubting demon exercise. But at the end of the day, if they are not willing to take that with them when they leave, and do more of that work themselves, they're going to come back to me the next session and nothing will have changed for them. And I'll know
Right.
that because they're going to keep repeating the same stories.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're a person who's been in therapy and you're still journaling about the same thing, what you can understand and take from what Megan just said is that you're not taking responsibility for your own work, that you're expecting this person to rescue you, which means you're still trying to resolve, trying to get this perfect relationship with this parent or caregiver that wasn't there, and you have this idea of how it should have been. And so now in your adult life, you're attracting someone who was like that parent, and you're getting into the dynamic, and it's unconscious, but you're trying to fix it by having this person show up differently than the way your parent showed up. And
Mhm.
you'll keep doing that in romantic partnerships and all of even business,
Yeah.
until you do your inner work, and that's finding out what the source of the belief is, what the thing is that caused the PTSD. Like, we can do a
Hmm.
lot of surface work and clearing energy, but if we don't get to the source of it, it's just like taking a medication and
Absolutely.
masking a symptom.
Yep. Yep. You're exactly right. And for some people, that's as far as they can go, right? In this lifetime, that's as far as they
Yeah.
can go. And I've had clients who've said to me point blank, I'm thinking of one client in particular, she came to me with fibromyalgia, which is also something that have manifested in my body is fibromyalgia. And I, I was giving her, the opportunity to see ways in which she could address her symptoms of her fibromyalgia by changing relationships that she had in her life. And she said to me at one point, she kind of put her hand up and she said, actually, I don't want to change that. Because if I change that, then I no longer have the fibromyalgia to define myself. And from a financial perspective, she was receiving aid from the government in terms of long-term disability. And if she got better, she wouldn't qualify for that long-term disability and would then have to go back out into the world and find her purpose. And she at least had the wherewithal, the knowledge, like the self-awareness to say, I don't want to do that. So I'm going to hold on to my pain and I'm going to stay in my situations until, well, for like indefinitely. And now my belief when something like that happens and a client says something like that to me is, then you are perfectly where you need to be right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
uh,
should that change, you know where I am,
yeah,
or
absolutely.
someone
And
else can help.
yeah, and when we would talk about this from an ancestral and generational perspective, there's a lot of clearing that needs to be done. And maybe this physical body and, uh, just the capacity for the consciousness to get, as we said, you're never going to be completely healed. But
Mhm,
like, at some point, the capacity for this body and this,
mhm.
heart, it's reached its limit for this
Yeah.
lifetime. Like, we've healed some things, and
Mhm,
if you believe in reincarnation, which I do, you're going to wake up in your next life and you're going to have that same baggage with you, and it might be a different symptom, but it's your opportunity to now work on it in this
mhm,
lifetime. And
mhm. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And the other thing to consider too when we manifest these things like illness or injury is that it's not always about us. Sometimes it's the relationship we have with someone else to give them the opportunity to caregive or acknowledge their own fears. Like I see this a lot with cancer when people get a cancer diagnosis. I watch the person who has the diagnosis deal with it in their way, but then it's also all the people around them because we have such a fear about cancer in our culture, and that's a whole other podcast. But we have such a fear about it that it's a trigger point. So if somebody in the vicinity of the person who's received the diagnosis has their own fear of death, for example, and they see cancer as being a one-way ticket to death, they have an opportunity now that their loved one has cancer to recognize that and possibly do some of their own personal work about it so that they can resolve something for themselves or show up in a different way for their loved one, right? So there's this external dynamic around illness that it isn't only about us, but it's sometimes we will say in that spiritual relationship that we have with another person, I'll take on the cancer this time. I'll be the one in the family to get that diagnosis so that you guys can all do your thing and figure yourselves out, and then we'll be on this journey together and we'll see where it takes us. And of course, these are conversations that are happening up here. They're not necessarily like this, but if they were like this, like if people could have that conversation, can you imagine? Oh my gosh, that'd be amazing. I got goosebumps just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really. There's so much truth that we are not telling.
Mm, that we not even necessarily know
Yeah.
have. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It blows me away. I love the whole arena of healing from this holistic place because, like we've talked about over this last hour or so we've been together, we've touched upon reincarnation. We've touched upon energy healing. We didn't say chakras, but we touched upon chakras as well. That was in there. Psychology, the physical body. We've gone so many different places to allow people the opportunity to have something land for them that maybe they haven't thought about before as a form of healing. And fundamentally, the message I always want people to have, like to take with them, is that they can heal anything, anything to what is appropriate for them, right? That's really key to what is appropriate for them. I've had clients who've had cancer and they've survived the cancer. They've changed the terrain of their body to the point where it's no longer necessary, or they've done the work internally and in their mindset so that the cancer, it's done its job and it doesn't have to show up. And then I've had clients who have said, I just really need help in dying from this. Right. Again, like that's where I had to do my own work around. It's not my job to save you.
Right.
It's not my job to judge you. And it's not my job to feel like I failed somehow if this particular thing in this instance is cancer took you out. It's part of the journey.
Yeah.
And I guess because I'm not afraid of death, I've looked at it in the face a few times with those 17 surgeries. I don't, it's not the end. My job is to support, not to save. If the person wants to have the experience of dying from cancer, that's nothing to do with me. But I can
Right.
help them. I can support them in that choice that they've made for themselves. And that's that medical autonomy that we're talking about as well.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
that's a testament to the type of healer you are, that they will
Mm.
say that to you honestly. Like the client that had the fibromyalgia, just
Mhm.
being able to be totally honest with you and you being like, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for seeing that. Thank you for seeing that. That's really beautiful. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, we are at the hour. Oh, we're over the hour. Wow. Look at us.
11:11. How powerful is
11.
that? That's perfect.
Perfect. So if you want to say where we can find you, I'm going to put the links in the show notes, but for those who can't read right now because they're doing something else.
Right, definitely. Quite a few different places as we all show up in different places these days. So my website, which is meganedge.ca, lots of information on there about the work I do and how I do the work I do and why I do it, and then my services and ways to reach out to me. I do work with people live, one-on-one if they're in my geographical area, and I'm also perfectly happy to go anywhere in the world online and meet people where they're at. And then you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram, Megan Edge Healing, or Beyond the Garden Gate Botanicals. We didn't really get a chance to talk about the other work that I do with bringing people into nature and helping them to understand what their medicine is in nature. And then I have a whole line of products that I've created, healing products, salves and infused oils and things like that from plant materials in nature or on the beach to help facilitate people's healing. So you can find me on Etsy at Megan Edge Botanicals and LinkedIn at Megan Edge Healing. Um, where else do I show up? Oh, YouTube. I have a YouTube channel with over 300 videos from my radio shows from the past to my own podcast to workshops that I've done that we've recorded, classes that I've done, all kinds of things over there. So, if you're not entirely sure if I'm a fit for you yet, go over there because then you can just see me in action and you'll know. And if it's not a fit, someone else will show up for you who is a fit.
Yes, absolutely. And
Yeah.
the spelling of Megan's last name is Edge, like edge. In
Yes. Oh,
case you
also,
didn't
if you're
know.
interested in my oracle cards, which is the Healing Hearts Oracle cards, and I mean the heart the Heart's Journey Healing Hearts Oracle cards and Guidebook, that you can find on my website. You can find it anywhere. I mean, you can find it online as well. But I've also shared a gift for your audience, which is a coupon link for 15% off the purchase of the book if they or the box set when they do it through me. And I'm happy to personalize it as well for people, if it's a gift for yourself or for somebody else.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It was great speaking with you. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You as well. Thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
Bye.
Bye.